3D workflow. 3D workflow. So what about 3D workflow? Note here please now. In Photoshop CS6, 3D functionality was part of Photoshop Extended, by the way, and all features in Photoshop Extended are part of Photoshop, and Photoshop doesn't have a separate Extended offering. And beginning with Photoshop CS6, Photoshop has a more intuitive, by the way, 3D workflow, and with consolidated tools and contextual on image controls. And what about 3D features Creative Cloud only? What about 3D features Creative Cloud only? By the way, for users who are new to Creative Cloud, the following features have been updated and added, by the way. Like 32-bit color pickers can now be used when specifying colors for materials and lines and surfaces or lights in the properties panel. And after that, normal maps can be generated, by the way, from diffuse maps. And in the 3D panel, select the 3D object you want to affect, and then click the filter by materials icon in the top area of the panel. And then in the properties panel, you should click the filter icon next to normal and choose generate normals from diffuse from the menu. After that, if you push rendering and make one or more selections, resuming the rendering will be applied, by the way, to the selections. Resuming a rendering also works even after saving your document as BSD. And after that, cross section now works with reflective surfaces and other surface styles such as constant and cartoon and sketch. And after that, by default, an image based light IPL is added, by the way, your 3D environment, and Adobe offers other IPL for download from Adobe Photoshop Extended 3D content. And also you can change the ray trace rendering tile size from its default, and which is set based on how many cores are in your computer. And you have to choose edit, then you choose preferences, then select 3D if you use Windows or Photoshop, and select preferences and select 3D if you use macOS, and then choose a size from the render tile size menu in the ray tracer section of the preferences dialog box. After that, during rendering, both the time remaining and percentage rendered are displayed in the status bar at the bottom of the document window. And Photoshop now offers better OpenGL shadows to specify the shadow quality that works best with your computer, and you should choose edit, then choose preferences, then select 3D if you use Windows or Photoshop, then select preferences, then choose 3D if you use macOS, and then choose an option from the shadow quality menu in the interactive rendering section of the preferences dialog box. And clicking the following link to the view a video of Photoshop Senior Product Manager Zorana G presenting the new 3D features in the Creative Cloud versions of Photoshop. And note here please now, and be careful, a minimum of 512 megabytes of VRAM is required, by the way, for the 3D features in the Creative Cloud version of Photoshop. And what about 3D panel targets scheme elements? What about 3D panel targets scheme elements? By the way, in the streamlined 3D panel, select specific elements you want to edit. We have steps here now. Step number 1. At the top of the 3D panel, you should select scheme, then select meshes, then select materials or lights. Step number 2. Select an individual element, such as current view in the skin section, or select multiple elements to apply uniform properties. Step number 3. Adjust setting in the properties panel or drag in the document window. And if you drag a specific object or light the 3D panel, then select the element. Note here please now. To add new lights, you should click the document icon at the bottom of the skin and light section, by the way, or click the panel menu to save and load groups of lights as a preset. What about properties panel provides contextual setting? By the way, after you select individual elements in the 3D panel or document window, the properties panel displays related setting, and when you finish adjusting, you should click the render icon at the bottom of the panel. And note here please now, in this point, You should to click the coordinates icon at the top of the panel to enter precise numerical locations for objects and cameras and lights. To quickly cycle between properties and coordinates, press the V key. After that, environment. What about environment? Environment setting includes global input and image-based lights and ground plane, shadows and reflections. And what about skin? Skin is meaning that setting includes render presets such as bounding box and wireframe and custom render options for cross sections and surface and points. And what about camera? Camera is meaning setting includes fields of view FOV, depth of field and stereo options for any glyph and lenticular or side by side viewing. And what about mesh? Mesh is meaning that setting let you catch and cast shadows, adjust 3D and edit source text and bases. And note is meaning to hide an object but retain its shadows for compositing with 2D images and select invisible. And what about materials? Materials is meaning setting includes texture and bump map settings such as the new roughness option. And light is meaning setting let you choose from infinite and spot and point types and adjust color and intensity and shadows. How to move? Tool consolidates object and camera adjustments. How to move tool consolidates object and camera adjustments. By the way, the move tool lets you adjust the placement of objects and camera. And in the options bar, you should choose between rotate and roll, and drag and slide, and scale and modes. And to quickly cycle through these modes, you should press Shift V. And to quickly switch between camera and environment controls, you should click away from 3D objects, by the way. And do not here breathe again. In the document window, by the way, a gold document border indicates camera control, and a blue border environment control, a green border scan control, and no border mesh control, by the way. And on image controls directly edit elements. By the way, with on image controls, you can often edit an entire 3D scan without accessing any workspace panels. To maximize your view, and press the F key to cycle between full screen and standard screen modes. And in the document window, you can directly interact with the following elements, by the way, like scan and mesh and light setting. To quickly access scan properties in the document window, and you should to press right click the canvas away from 3D objects, by the way, or right click meshes and lights to access their properties. So what about shadows? Shadows, you should to press shift click them and then drag to reposition the related light. And what about object bounding box controls? Object bounding box controls. You should to click an object once to activate and then position the mouse pointer over various and planes when a plane is shaded yellow, and drag to adjust the object along that axis, or drag corners to rotate on the X or Y axis. How to create and adjust 3D extrusions. How to create and adjust 3D extrusions. The 3D extrusions, by the way, lets you extend type and selections and closed bases and shapes and image layers into 3 dimensions. We have steps here now. Step number 1, select base, then select shape layer, then select type layer and image layer or specific pixel areas. Step number 2, choose 3D, then select new 3D extrusion from selected base and layer or current selection. And note here now, to quickly extrude, type while editing with the type tool and click the 3D button in the options bar. Step number 3, with the mesh selected in the 3D panel, select the deform or cap icons at the top of the properties panel. Step number 4, edit numerical setting in the properties panel or drag the interactive extrusion controls in the document window. To edit the original base, and type or image layer. You should select the related mesh in the 3D panel firstly, and then click edit source in the properties panel. How to define ground plans for imported objects. How to define ground. How to define ground plans for imported objects. By the way, quickly create perspective plans with the vanishing point filter and snap an imported object to them. We have steps. Step number 1. You should select an image layer, then choose filter, then choose vanishing point. Step number 2. Using the create plan and edit plan tools, you should create a grid to define a ground plan, then click OK. Step number 3. Choose 3D, then select a new 3D layer from file, and the imported object is placed by the way on the ground plan you defined. How to make bases from 3D layers. How to make bases from 3D layers. You should choose 3D firstly, then make work path from 3D layer to convert the current rendering into a work path. This command by the way traces a path over the alpha channel of the layer. And if you render in wireframe mode and adjust the case threshold value to eliminate some unnecessary lines, you can create by the way a rendering that looks hand drawn when stroked with a Photoshop brush. And what about merge multiple 3D layers? Merge multiple 3D layers. By the way, to improve performance and interact shadows and reflections for multiple objects, you can merge as many 3D layers as you need. And before merging 3D layers, you can use the orthographic camera view to position meshes with maximum precision. We have two steps. Step number 1. We have two steps. Step number 1. At the top of the 3D panel, you should click the skin icon and select current view. Step number 2. In the properties panel, select orthographic.